See. All right, Lieutenant Governor is here. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Paul. It's good to see you. How are you doing this morning?
Beginning to worry about you. I was going to put out, not a silver alert, I was just going to put out a memorandum.
Well, you listen to those things about those dogs, and you just wonder if those people are human.
Oh, geez. It is amazing in that it took that long to crack this thing.
20 years.
For 20 years.
I know. That's just, I was listening while we were waiting there. But, yeah, 20 years is a long time. That's about how much time you ought to spend in prison.
We've kind of eradicated that, and hats off to my dear friend Dr. Dearman, Bob Dearman, for being a guy who, and you know him well, was an advocate to pass tougher laws on that one over the years.
Yep, and we did some of that this last term.
Yep. All right, let's kick it off with, first of all, I want to talk about your tour to Kuwait. When did you go over there?
Oh, yeah, Paul. I'm glad you brought that up. I have to give you a little bit of backstory, I think. Mm-hmm. When I was Secretary of State, I believe that all of our overseas men and women should vote, while they're defending the country. And what you had to do, you had to mail them something. They had to mail you back, and then you had to mail them the ballot. And, the odds were just very remote that we were going to be able to vote. So we did electronic voting, where our men and women in the military can vote from a foxhole in Afghanistan. If they can get cell service, they can vote just like they were in Grenada or Wayne County or wherever. So in 2008, I went over to, of course, the war was going on very strongly, and I went over to Kuwait and then back to Iraq and then back to Afghanistan. And I was in Kabul, and I would meet with all of our Mississippi soldiers and talk to them about how they could vote. I thought that was really, really important. Fast forward 2018, I went back to Kuwait, and there's a camp out there called Camp Beering, which is kind of the center of what our military does. And these are Mississippi National Guard, Paul. We have about 12,000 of them. And 4 years ago when I went, there were about 4,000 really based in this location and out in the desert in Kuwait. And when I say desert, Paul, I walked past some camels and stuff, and they didn't look like to me they had anything to eat as far as you could see. Mm. So, it's hot. It's 115 degrees. So I went back in 2018 and really enjoyed being out and staying at the camp and visiting with our young men and women and watching what they were doing. Then I was invited back again this year. So to 2023, we went back again a couple of weeks ago. And we went to Germany first, and we have two different groups there, maintenance groups mainly. And they are at Grafenwar, which is an old Nazi war base. And it trained all of their panzers and everything during World War II. And, of course, our soldiers, the United States, overtook that part of Germany when we went in World War II. There's a place there where Hitler's, I went up there, too. They had a big, giant stand thing, tower, that he watched all of these people perform in front of him. It was kind of eerie to be on the same spot he was. Mm-hmm. The United States took over that in about 1946-47 and has been training off and on there. There's some pictures of Elvis Presley there. He was at this particular base. And so they're just a long history. Now our units there all are repair, maintenance, and other operations basically aimed at Ukraine. In the Soviet, how did you...
So wait a minute. These 12,000 are supplying the equipment or helping as far as the Ukraine war is concerned?
No, part of them are. Of the 12,000, Paul, the way this works, they rotate in and out of here. This time, I would say there's probably 1,500 to 2,000 Mississippians over there somewhere. And I'll get to some of that in just a second, but... we have maybe several hundred that are in Germany, and they're working on repairing machinery and whatnot that is being blown up during the Ukraine war. They're also training their non-commissioned officers, which I thought was really interesting. Under the Soviet style of war, the commanding general is closer to the front, and they make all the decisions concerning battle lines and everything else. And we have non-commissioned officers and lieutenants that make a lot of the battle time decisions. We just run our Army different. And that's proven to be very ineffective for them in Ukraine. And Ukraine, with the Russians, and in Ukraine, their armed forces were similarly trained. So now we have a non-commissioned officer school there that we're training their military. We're training them on the tanks, that they use, that kind of thing. None of this is super secret. I think you can pick it up from just about anywhere. And our guys and ladies, they were fixing like the night goggles that they use, very sophisticated repairs, maintenance. They had a big inventory thing they had done there. They have these huge pieces of equipment, but they don't live in very good conditions. The ones that are going back here again in December, they're going to be living in tents. This is in Bavaria, Paul.
Yeah.
They're going to be living in tents while they do their work with the armored divisions and the maintenance divisions and the training that they do there. So it's not real luxurious. When I went in one of their barracks, I can just tell you it was worse than the one I was in when I was in the Army. So this is not just a vacation. And
I don't want to use all the time on this one because we have limited time. But what was your assessment of? Did they feel like they were getting anywhere with this?
You see, that's real interesting, Paul. When I left there, I went to Kuwait, and I got embedded with these units. And when I say units, I'm speaking of helicopter units, armored units, special operations. We have a special operations unit here in Mississippi. You don't hear about it. And, of course, they go into places they won't even tell you where they are. So we have all of those Mississippians spread all over, and I got to visit with them for this week or 10 days or so. And I will tell you, the first thing that struck me was their camaraderie and their team spirit. The second thing was the level of sophistication that these people are doing. Now, I'm telling you, they are running the most sophisticated equipment we have that's available for war. It's being run by our guys and girls and ladies up in the middle of the desert out here. And if you saw what they were doing, you would truly be amazed.
We got a break coming up here. The bumper's playing.
Yeah.
A final question on this one. Did you hear or see anybody or read anything about any of our guys or any American soldiers actually being wounded in this war? Because there was a report that some American soldiers are showing up at some of the hospitals with possible battle wounds.
Well, I didn't might personally do that, but you would be a neophyte if you didn't think that we were everywhere in the Middle East.
All right, hold on. Back. A D.C. congressman who was carjacked. Did you see that?
I did. And this last year, Paul, we started making mandatory sentencing for carjacking in Mississippi.
Yes.
And, of course, there was the normal liberal, oh, my goodness, you're going to put people in prison. And I said, we'll make room for them. That'll be fine. But carjacking, where they put a gun to a congressman or your wife or whomever and take their car, I think those people need to go to timeout. And so we now have mandatory sentencing in Mississippi for that, and you're going to see some more mandatory sentencing actually come in this next session.
And by the way, in Mississippi, the Castle Doctrine covers your vehicle too, doesn't it?
It does, Paul, but the real thing you want to do, it does, but that's not the answer to getting a shootout in your own car. The answer is to get these people who are stealing hundreds of cars in Jackson every year, hundreds. And so you go get these people off the street and put them in a place where hopefully they can be re-educated about some skill that will allow them to have a job and where they don't have to steal the things you work so hard for.
Yeah, they still haven't found his car, by the way. Let me ask you this.
He's lucky he wasn't shot, Paul.
Well, but the Castle Doctrine, if that guy is shooting at you trying to steal your car, then you can at least take some solace in the fact that you have the legal right to shoot him back.
You do, Paul, but I would alert you that if someone is sitting next to you and he gets the first shot and you're in a car, the likelihood of you getting hit is pretty good. So we're trying to make sure that those people go to prison. I don't want to make sure that you're a better shot than somebody sitting next to you.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to get in that argument, number one, because
the Castle Doctrine is great, and I think I'm armed. I don't mind admitting that. Most of my senators are armed, and we've had our trucks stolen down at the Capitol,
That's right.
around the Capitol, and all that goes on. So our people are prepared for that eventuality, but I'd rather have that person sitting behind prison than I would trying to face him down with a gun.
Oh, everyone would. Is the Capital District safer now because of?
I believe that it is. I noticed we had 59 felony arrests, a significant number. We've hit the streets right at 150 people now. Yeah. We'll be expanding it on January the 1st up to Northside Drive and down to South Jackson. And our policing, we've had virtually no complaints about from the public, and they seem to be welcoming, I think, the fact that we do have a strong police force now enforcing the laws of the state of Mississippi as passed by the legislature. So I'm thinking that they are improved, Paul. I don't have any statistical information, but certainly in the areas that I witnessed, they're improved.
Topic number one, as far as any ammunition from Brandon Presley, the Democrat in this, who wants to be governor of the state, is the Medicaid expansion. You have seen this from several different sides. I know that this is a subject that never leaves, even during the summertime as lieutenant governor. For the folks in the statewide audience, what is your latest take on this, and also what the governor has presented?
Well, going back, we'll take them one at a time. We proposed the system that the governor has proposed here in the last week or so last year, in conjunction with the hospitals, Hospital Association, various and sundry major hospitals, and Medicaid. That was unsuccessful. The one that he's proposed, I think, is a good idea. It brings us up reimbursement up to a higher level, and we've increased what's called the bed tax to pay for that. So there's not really a lot of money out of Mississippians' hands, and the net to the hospital is about $600 million. So that's a positive thing. On the issue of going forward, I have met, I don't know, everywhere from Singing River Hospital to New Albany Hospital, which I was at yesterday, meeting with some of their people. And to a person, Paul, they will tell you that adopting Medicaid expansion will not solve all of the health care issues or the expense issues for hospitals. Now, that's just a fact. So this silver bullet or whatever that people talk about does not exist. There are major issues. For example, our pharmaceutical cost, our private pharmacists, our independent pharmacists are suffering, and you have to look at the whole transactions that's going on in healthcare. We did postpartum last year, as you know, got that passed, and there are other steps. In November, we'll have hearings in the Senate side to discuss everything from pharmacies to nurses shortages, from OBGYN shortages in rural Mississippi to the hospitals. So you pick it, mental health, all of those are going to be on the table. I expect we're going to have more of a holistic approach, and I would encourage everybody to participate in that. Let's just don't go press a button and say we're going to do Medicaid expansion. Whether it's a good idea or not, I'm just telling you, if you do that, 2 or 3 years from now, you're going to be back right here.
That's exactly right. But there's a two-pronged problem with this. Number one is the insurance of those folks, regardless of what the hospital situation is. And the second is will it help the hospital? But you and I had a conversation, and it's been several years ago, and we were sitting down talking about thinking out of the box, and I think you threw up an idea that to me sounded like it had some merit for a co-op or combining with some of the other states that are kind of lost leader states as far as insurance is concerned. Do you remember that?
We did it, Paul. First on the community hospitals. We now there was an antitrust provision, so now all of our community hospitals can merge together. Then I don't think this is a secret or anything, but I have been in conversations with Tennessee and Louisiana and Florida about basically a cooperative arrangement for the purchase of drugs, because we have a huge, it's probably 15 to 20% of our cost of health care, and we have been talking about doing something where we skipped some of the levels that take money out of here and directly deal with the manufacturer. That's done on a lot of in most other industries, and should be done in the pharmaceutical industry. And we have not been successful with that. The barrier has been the FDA's approval of a Florida initiative that we were a part of. But I'm not giving up on that. I think the cooperative part is important, and I anticipate looking at how the other states, Louisiana's adopted one form, Arkansas adopted another, Alabama just did something else. North Carolina just adopted something else, so there's about 5 or 6 different models that are circulating out there.
Do people? I don't think people understand this too, as far as the financial responsibility of what happens. That combined will it do any good? Are we doing a generational poverty or subsidy for the next generation as we do on the original Medicaid? Well, is it going to help long term to get people out of the situation?
Well, the first thing you need to know is that we are talking. This discussions that everybody's having is about working people. This is not the people who just sit at home and decide they're just not going to work in our society. And unfortunately, we have only a 54 or 55% labor participation rate. Yep. That's horrific. It's 6 or 7 points less than the national average. That means 46% of our people are not working for whatever reason, health or whatever. And so we got to be careful there about the ones that are working having access. That's what this discussion is about. It's not the ones that don't work are already covered because they make less than $4,000 a year that they report some kind of way.
What's number two beside the hospitals and insurance? It is. I know crime is big when you travel across the state, and people are talking about that. Certainly, the initiative process. In the 2024 is going to be here before you know it.
Yes, sir. Yeah, our first thing to do is get elected, as you know. But after November, we'll start these health care hearings. But I announced yesterday up in North Mississippi that we're going to tuition-free community college. And I think that's a huge statement. I don't know whether you've seen that or yet or not. I don't know that it's public so much. But we have been working on that from a year ago as part of our education package to have these individuals. As you know, there's a number of school districts going to semester systems, which some people call year-round. And now we're looking at going to free tuition for community colleges. I want our people to get through their 12th year and have another year for skill sets, or maybe 2 years to go on to a university system. We only have about 23%, I think, actually get a university degree, and there's about 34% in the country.
How committed are you to school choice? We had a good conversation with Jason White, who may be the next speaker, and he's all in on that when he wanted to bring it up as far as school choice is concerned. Yeah, your thoughts?
Yeah, we're going to have a school choice, multiple school choice bills this year. There are all kinds of questions that are involved in that. At what level do you have school choice? You have universal school choice. Do you have school choice for only F, D, and C schools or something like that? Then, of course, we have a case pending about the fact that you can't put government money in private schools, which it appears that we're losing that argument, so that narrows down the scope.
Wait a minute, and I'll let you continue this on the other side.
Yeah, we appropriated $10 million.
How are we doing it? How are we having a problem with that in other states?
Well, we have a constitution, Paul, and
you're saying it's in our state constitution.
According to the plaintiffs, it is, and I've read it, and I think it is as well. That's what the case spins. We authorized $10 million for private schools last year, and we're states being sued on a constitutional issue.
Democrats wrote that in the Constitution, didn't they?
I don't know. So there's a lot of things in there, but we all need to read it. It's not something you can just put aside.
In 140 years, they had time to do that. Wow. Final segment. And Gavin Newsom basically says it's because only in California are the oil companies screwing the people of California. Has nothing to do with his policies. But that's another story. Your final thoughts from the Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann.
Oh, I'm just real excited about the upcoming session, Paul. They're gonna work on education and the tuition we talked about, and we'll have bills on everything, every conceivable matter. Very interested in our infrastructure. We are in excellent financial condition, the best we've ever been in as a state. You know that. We haven't borrowed any money in 2 years. I don't intend to borrow any money next year. We paid off $500 million in state debt, 12% of the state's debt. So instead of going and financing that at 6 or 8% right now, I can take that $30 or $40 million and put it in education or roads or whatever. So we really have managed our money well. I think we are continuing to cut income tax every year. I think the grocery tax will come up this year, Paul. It's time for us to address that, I believe, and I had proposed that in prior years. I didn't seem to get much traction while we were cutting the income tax, but I think
is there a way to make the municipalities happy on that?
Absolutely. I mean, it's a statistical number, so it's not like something horrible. You can figure what their amount would be quite easily. So I anticipate that coming. I want to take some time, Paul. We have spent so much money in the last couple of years, like $2.3 billion on roads and so many dollars everywhere. I do want to take a little bit of a pause and make sure that money is being spent well and is actually hitting the streets as it should. And I think some oversight, it's very appropriate for us to be looking over our shoulder a little bit and making sure that these funds are going in the right direction.
Are you in communication with Brad White at MDOT on that?
Often.
Okay. Is that because of anything that's happened that we don't know about?
Well, I have a basic frustration of the fact we appropriate, and then a year later, nothing's been done.
We can say that about a lot of things.
Tell me about it. We appropriated money for a nursing school at UMMC 2 years ago. I mean, I can go around Mississippi where we've appropriated money for roads, even in cities and things that it just hasn't been accomplished.
How many things have we built over the years, but never funded to operate them? So.
Well, that too, but the time between the vote in the Senate and the House and the time that matters get accomplished is too long for me, Paul.
How long will it take us to kind of get a feel of weaning us off of the personal income tax, taking that next step? And I say get a feel as far as the revenues, how it's affecting revenue with the first step.
Yeah,
because we were downturn in August, but good news in September.
September, right. Yeah. But I think with the interest rates, first of all, I anticipate a gradual reduction of the income tax until we get to zero at some point in time. Under the prior proposals, it was 2036, I believe. We would hope prior to that time, but anyway, I anticipate that, and I anticipate a view of the grocery tax this year, and I anticipate a gradual reduction as we go along and see what things are doing. But Paul, this interest rate that's jumped up to 10 and 11% now. I talked to bankers yesterday. Their loan volume is slowing down. Their loan request, that kind of thing. Yeah. If you look at our credit card payments, delinquencies are up. We're starting to feel the fact that the Fed keeps raising its interest rate. We're going to have a slowdown, hopefully not a recession, but some type of slowdown, and we need to be prepared for that.
Revenues do look good, as we mentioned before, and hopefully everything will continue as it has. But so your top three on the agenda for 2024?
Yeah, we're going to have our healthcare summit in November. I think that's probably going to be our number one discussion this year. We'll be back again on infrastructure and education, on reducing taxes. We started building out our parks 2 years ago. I've been pushing that, and we're about 2 years away from having new parks for everybody to go to in Mississippi, and I think that's very important. We funded an outdoor stewardship fund. We now purge voter rolls. If you hadn't voted for 2 presidential elections, we made the voter rolls much better, in better shape to do that. And we're going to fund the Secretary of State, my home place over there, a better computer system next year, so that they can run it a little bit more efficiently.
Question: can a governor just willy-nilly on his own expand Medicaid?
I've seen in the paper that people say that he can. That he may.
Well, that's in the paper though. 99% of that you don't know if it's true or not.
The paper's so small anymore, Paul. I don't know. It's only 2 pages, and most of it is written by somebody outside Mississippi. So I hadn't gone into that part because, of course, our current governor's
and obligate $200, $300, $400 million out of the state revenue on his own.
I wouldn't do that, but I'm not saying that he doesn't have the power to do that.
That's interesting. Delbert Hosemann, the one and only Lieutenant Governor of the state of Mississippi. Always a pleasure, sir. Thank you so very much.
It's good to be here, Paul. We are in such great shape, Paul. Our state's never been this like it is right now. From our education to our infrastructure to our tax structure. It's all really, really good, and we're going to have a great next 4 years.
That's why we got to keep it going.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it very much.
Yeah, it's good to see you, Paul.
Good to see you. Andy Gibson, Commissioner of the Department of Agriculture and Commerce.